Hi, everybody. I'm Tanya Pobeda. I'm a PhD candidate who studies board games. And today we're going to do a deep dive into some of my dissertation research, looking at how inclusive is board gaming with a specific focus on Canada and the US. And this is my first ever video for Our Family Plays Games, and I'm so pleased and proud to be here. So let's take it away. This is Schooled by Gru, an exclusive series for Our Family Plays Games Voices, where I do a deep dive into my PhD dissertation research and share with you the findings before the rest of the world sees it, exclusively on Our Family Plays Games. So first you might be asking yourself, why Gru? Gru is short for Grushenka, and it was an old gamer nickname I had back in the 1990s and going forward since then, where I called myself Grushenka online. And so my friends called me Gru. My research started about 4 years ago when I started tracking BoardGameGeek top 200 and then top 400 games to look for patterns in some of the gender and racial dimensions of the designers of those games, the artwork on those games, looking at BoardGameGeek databases and basically doing a very deep dive analysis into cover art and the labor of board games. One of the first things that I identified is in the top 400 BoardGameGeek ranked games, 92.6% of those games were designed by white men. The other thing I looked at was the imagery on the cover art of the top 200 BoardGameGeek ranked games. And I discovered of the nearly 2,000 figures that I recorded, 82.5% of those human representations were white presenting figures. In addition, 76.8% of the nearly 2,000 figures that I recorded were men or boys, so appeared to be male. And yet, when you compare these findings to global demographies, you see a real disconnect. Very basic audience research tells us that 80% of the world's population is Black, Indigenous, persons of color. The US, which is one of the largest consumer markets in the world, has a population of 57.8% who are white, non-Hispanic. When you look at major urban centers in Canada and the US, you can see it's almost a 50-50 split between BIPOC and white populations. In a city like New York, one of the largest consumer hubs in the world, it's more of a 60-40 split, with 60% BIPOC and 40% white. In my hometown in Toronto, you have a 50-50 split. So the board game findings that I was discovering didn't really make a lot of sense in the context of population demographics in the US and Canada. So I wanted to find out, it bothered me, if it bothered other board game players. So I asked 320 research participants to weigh in on issues of representation. Now I'm going to be sharing some of the quantitative data from those findings in subsequent episodes, but today I really wanted to walk you through some of the comments that I got from participants of the survey, specifically comments like this one, where our local board game convention is whiter than Wonder Bread, and the game designer club I attend has an all-male attendance 95% of the time. These are the kinds of comments that I got in the survey. I got comments like this one, where there was actual representation of Black, Indigenous, persons of color in board game artwork. Often it was very negative. And in this particular comment, talking about the way Indigenous peoples are represented in board game artwork as being very negative, and in this case, barbarians in need of civilization. And here's another comment talking about the importance of real sensitivity, investigation, research, and that there needs to be some investigation into how these themes and ideas are produced and brought to market. In this particular instance, the negative portrayal of Black identities in certain board game products, and how companies need to do better. There's so much more to come. This is my very first installment for Our Family Plays Games, Schooled by Gru. Thank you so much for listening.